Hello, fellow nerds, and welcome to Our Nerdiest Thing. Today is a very special episode. We're talking about our 2024 book Superlatives, aka the best books of 2024.
Or if you don't know what that is, or you've not ever seen it written out, it's Superlatives.
Yeah, that is the Latin root of the word.
Yes.
I don't know.
Surely it is, right?
I just made that up. But here
now
we
I
are.
Find out.
Yeah, we've got several categories that we're all going to share, our favorite books that fit these different superlatives. So here we go.
You can't do that because now I'm going to say it wrong.
So first up for our 2024 book Superlatives, let's just go ahead and name favorite read of the second half of 2024. We did a whole episode in the summer of the favorite books from the first half of the year. Yes. So let's just, follow up with that. What you guys, this was, first of all, before we even get into it, this was much harder than I thought it was going to be narrow down like one book per category.
I have more than one book.
I was going to say some categories have more than one book, but this was much harder than I thought it was going to be.
For me too.
Who wants to go first? Your favorite read of
I
the
bet
second
ours
half?
is the same.
You and me?
Yeah.
I don't think it is.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I put Goldfinch by Raymond Kennedy. And it's because the series just ended so beautifully.
Yeah, it was really good.
Open like arcs for some of our favorite side characters. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, it was a really good read. What was yours, Vinny?
Well, this one I had too, but I'm telling you, it's categories. So I have a romance category and a fantasy category. So
nice.
My fantasy was also Goldfinch, again, for the same reasons. Just a great ending to a great series.
Yeah.
Just really, there wasn't anything that I was disappointed about. Like, I mean, I didn't like that characters died, but like I felt like it fit the story.
Yeah.
So I wasn't like upset with her for doing that necessarily. And then my romance pick was The Score by L. Kennedy.
Yeah, that's a good one. Oh, it's so good.
I know.
Yeah, this was really hard for me to narrow down because I had a lot of 5-star reads, especially the second half of the year. But I decided ultimately I was just going to go with the most recent 5-star read that I had, which was a couple of days ago. And I haven't gotten to talk about this book on the podcast yet because I literally just read it and I loved it. So this is my favorite read of the second half of 2024, Without the Moon, Act 1. It's by Larissa C. Moyer, and I've read a couple of her books before through Sunny Bay PR, some arcs, and this is her first venture into darker romance. So there are some pretty intense trigger warnings for SA and severe PTSD. So go to her Instagram page. She's got a full list of triggers and, just be mindful of those. So this book follows, I'm just going to give you a really quick synopsis because I haven't gotten to shout the praises yet.
When does it come out with?
It comes out.
What month?
That's a great question.
We'll put it in the show notes.
I think December.
Okay.
I'll have to check to be sure, but I'm pretty sure it comes out in December. But this follows childhood sweethearts, Link and Paige, and they have not been in each other's lives for 7 years, but they both are not over the other one. They constantly think about each other and wonder how the other one is doing, and they've never moved past their relationship. And there's some big, mysterious, horrible trauma that happened and ended their relationship. And the book is kind of like figuring out what that is. So this is a dual POV and a dual timeline. It jumps back and forth between 7 years ago and present day. And so it took me a few chapters to kind of like get into the pace of the story and how that back and forth was going to work. It is so good. So the whole book is leading up to figuring out exactly what happened. What is this big bad trauma that happened for these two people who now are suddenly back in each other's lives and they have to face this past trauma. And I thought that I knew what was going on. And when I got to the end of the epilogue, I threw my Kindle to the other side of the bed and literally my jaw was dropped. And I immediately messaged Larissa and was like, excuse me. It was so good, but it's really, really heavy. So be very mindful of the trigger warnings, but I will not say this much about every single book I talk about, but I haven't gotten to talk about this book yet. So everybody should go read it. It's so good.
Great.
There's definitely going to be at least one follow-up book, an act 2 for this main, couple's story. And then there's already a side character that's going to have their own book that you just are going to love them. And it's so good. But anyway, look her up. She's great. That was my favorite read of the second half of 2024. Let's move on, friends. What was your best indie author read this year?
This author for me is she's a hybrid author, actually. So she has some books that are indie published and some that are traditional published. But I chose Harley LaRue, specifically her book, Her Soul to Take. It's a really different take on witches and warlocks who actually use demons. So in the books, humans are the bad guys because they're using demons as slaves who just want to be set free. So it's a really different take, and it's dark romance and really, really spicy and kind of messed up, but it's a fun read for sure.
All dark romances. It's a little messed up, but it's good. Mindy, what was your best indie
I've
author?
talked about this book numerous times, so I'm not going to like describe it or anything, but I picked If It Makes You Happy by Julie Olivia.
Oh, yeah.
Because number one, she's just a cool human being, and I can tell that like if we got together, we would definitely need to go have coffee or something. We have very similar tastes, and that book, I don't know what it was about it. I don't know if it was the sort of nostalgia of the 90s, and this was like when I started really like, okay, I really like this whole single dad thing. Like that's when, and then I started picking those up
a lot too.
Like more and more I've been picking up. If it says it's a single dad, I'm like, oh yes, I want that on my TBR. So yeah, I just really, really loved that book. It was, I think too, I read it in a time where I needed something that I just really loved.
Yeah.
And it was a good timing for me.
I read that after your recommendation too, like pretty immediately after, because it sounded like you're saying sometimes you need to read that kind of book, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I loved it. Well, my favorite / best indie author read was When the Rain Falls by Rhea. I'm sorry, I still don't know the pronunciation. Rea Riley. This is just a great debut novel. I've talked about it for a couple of different episodes. I've been telling everybody to read it. I loved it.
What was that book called again?
When the Rain Falls.
When the Rain Falls.
And it's also a single dad, widower, single dad. It's age gap. Wild child, female main character, single dad, male main character, insta love, insta attraction, really good spice. It was really, really good. I loved it. It's a great debut novel. What about the best new to me author? Who did you guys say?
I have two. Is
Go
that
for
okay?
it. No.
I have a honorable mention. I have a
One needs to be cut now.
Sorry. It's not going to happen. So my first one, this is a book everyone has heard me talk about on the podcast, but it's What the Woods Took by Courtney Gold. This actually just came out on December 10th, and it's a really great YA horror story. And what I like about it is she leaves a lot of the monsters to the imagination, which makes it much more high suspense, right? Sometimes you can ruin the monster by over-explaining it. And then the second one was just a Bookstagram thing that I've seen everywhere over the last couple years. A Court This Cruel and Lovely by Stacia Stark. It's a really wonderful book about hidden powers and secret identities, and it's perfect for people who like their fantasy not too world buildy.
Yeah.
It's very easy to understand and follow. Yeah. So highly recommend.
I saw a TikTok today that was like POV when you read a new fantasy book and are doing the first few chapters, and it's that clip from the Keenan and Kel movie, the Good Burger movie, where he's like, I know some of these words. It made me laugh because that's very much how it feels. Mindy, who's your best new to me author?
My best new to me author is Caitlin Doyle. I read her debut novel, Arc, Just Some Stupid Love Story. And it just was just a cute, again, rom-com.
Yeah.
Again, a time that I really needed something light and fun that had great witty banter.
Yeah.
And just really great characters.
Yeah. I love that.
Oh, I did have an honorable mention, though.
Oh, yeah. Mention it all.
Christina Lauren, which I know they've been writing forever, but this was the first year that I read anything by them, and I read Paradise Problem and Tangled Up in You, and I really enjoyed both of those. So.
Yeah, I remember the Tangled Up in You.
Tangled Up in You. Yeah.
Tangled Up in You.
I got to meet him at one of the Joseph Bass. Yeah.
It's on my list. Well, my best new to me author is Ellery Douglas, who I think I just have a crush on. I just love her. I
think I have a crush on her, and I haven't read her stuff yet, but I'm dying to.
She's so sweet. I got to interview her. She was so fun to talk to. She's written A Better Proposal. Her newest release is A Better Engagement, which is a novella epilogue basically to A Better Proposal, and then A Lucky Shot. Those were all really great 5-star reads, and I again tell everybody about them and tell everybody to read them. She's fun to read. So that's my best new to me author. What about a book that you couldn't stop thinking about?
I just looked at yours, Deb, and we have the same thing.
Okay, go ahead then.
Don't Let the Forest End by C.G. Drews. I'm still thinking about that book.
Yep, 100%. Yeah. It's so beautifully written. I was just recommending this book to people still this weekend, and I read this book in April. I already read it. I really need to read it again. There's just something really special about it, and it's so eloquently written. Yeah. I don't even know how to explain it without giving anything away.
Right. And it's not
just beautiful.
It's like nothing you've ever read. It's poetic, but it's not like,
but not boring.
But you're not like,
if you said that to me, I'd be like, no,
not pretentious.
No, it's just it's just beautiful. It's just a beautifully written story. Yeah.
That's funny because my book I can't stop thinking about is, I'm pretty sure I read this in April also. This is Elle Mitchell's The Pieces We Try to Forget, which is a prequel to her book, The Pieces We Leave Behind, which is her Lost Hollow series. And this book, I mean, I just fell apart. This was the infamous like tissue stuck to my face, crying in my closet. And I still think about it literally every single week. A few times a week, I think about this book and these characters. And it just has really stuck with me. It's been months since I read it. You've got to read The Pieces We Leave Behind first before you read The Pieces We Try to Forget. And it's my favorite book that she's written. I really love these two characters, Ty and Mel, and you love them and you can't stand them and you are so mad at them and your heart breaks for them. And I'm going to hold out hope. I know Elle has told me that she would like to write some more of their story. So I'm going to keep my fingers crossed that we get more, but I love it. Everybody needs to read it. I'm going to say that with every single thing that we talk about.
I know.
Which I feel like goes without saying because it is the superlative.
That's why we are suggesting.
You know. All of these books, just read them.
Yeah, because we're definitely not doing anything negative. We're not doing
for sure. Yeah, these are all like books that we love.
Right.
So, what about book that most surprised you? What'd you guys say?
What's yours, man?
I picked Pretend for Me by Swati MH. I love all her books, but I wasn't sure going into this one based on the description if I would really like it. But it really ended up being a 5-star read for me. It was so funny. Again, with the witty banter, which I love. Like, for me, if it's going to be a rom-com, it has to have really good banter.
Right.
And this one just ticked all my boxes.
Yeah. Made you feel some tingles too.
Yeah.
Did it help your box?
It ticked my box too.
Ooh. Oh, I like when we come up with new phrases for things. Deb, what was your book that most surprised you?
I have two.
I have two also.
Okay. So my first one is Throne of Broken Gods by Amber V. Nicole. The grief process in this book was perfectly written. It's almost a hard read, but I liked going through the process with the main character. I've never had someone write grief that eloquently before. It's beautifully written. And then my second one is Annie Bot by Sierra Greer. I thought about this book for weeks after I read it and actually upped my star rating due to that. It is sci-fi, but it's really a thought-provoking book about AI and if the sentience of it can be mentally and physically abused if you put it into a body. And I could not stop thinking about it because he essentially has a robot sex doll that has AI and she becomes sentient and has feelings of her own. But he when he gets mad at her, he'll lock her in the closet and stuff. And so it makes you think she's not a person, but she has a mind.
Yeah.
So what makes a person?
Right. Yeah. So I think everyone should read. When I read it, I was like, okay, that was really interesting. And then just seriously could not stop thinking about it. Yeah.
You start asking yourself questions about stuff.
Right. Yeah.
Ugh. That almost is I just want to pretend that's not a thing.
I know.
Well, I have two books also that most surprised me. And both of these were books that I went into expecting them to be all smut, no plot, and was very pleasantly surprised by them. So the first one is Priest by Sierra Simone. Definitely thought this was going to be all smut, no plot. But I also thought, based on the description, I thought this was going to be this. This was what I read in my notes. I was expecting a magical Jezebel vagina that pulls a man of God away from religion. But it's really not.
That's what you think it's going to be.
Yeah, and it's so much deeper than that. There's a real story and real character development, and I really, really loved it a lot. And kind of the same, but just on a different scale. Timelessly Ours by Roxanne Tully. It's a hockey book, and it's an age gap romance. And I'm pretty sure this is a book that in my Goodreads I said the cover of this book is embarrassing. The fact that I love it is embarrassing because it's this silver fox dad on the cover who's like lifting his shirt up.
Oh yeah, I remember
for his
this
6-pack.
One,
Yeah, and so you're like, okay, like I see what kind of book this is, but it's a lot deeper than you think it's going to be, and I really enjoyed the actual story. And it's another single dad. He's the head coach of a hockey team, and he gets into a forbidden romance with a younger sister of one of his star players. Okay. So, but I really liked both of those books a lot, and they were both much deeper and more story than I expected. So there you go. What about your all's favorite 2024 new release?
What was yours, Whit?
Well, I, again, had a really hard time picking one, but I ended up going with A Lucky Shot by Ellery Douglas. So this was the first book of hers that I read, and I read it months ago. And again, I'm still talking about it, just like many other books on this list. And it led me to her other books, and I've been able to turn other people on to her as a writer. And her books are just so good, and her spice is so good. The character development is great. It was just a book that I really like needed at that time. It was a fun read. It was light. It was happy. It was feel good. It was just like what I needed in that moment. And it was the perfect book at the perfect time. So I loved it. I
cannot believe that's what you put. I mean, just knowing the other fantasy books that came out this year. Yeah.
That's awesome. Those are coming up in the next superlative.
Oh, okay.
What about you guys?
Mindy, what was yours?
I tried really hard not to like repeat, but
me too.
For me, it was Don't Let the Forest In by C.G. Drew. Every time I came back to like favorite new release, favorite things that just, and it was just something very different for me to read. And I'm so proud of myself because it didn't take me a whole year to read something that Deb suggested.
A year or longer.
There was a pang of jealousy whenever Whitney was like, yeah, I read that right after you recommended it to me. I was like, what the fuck?
I almost didn't even say that because I thought that. I was like, uh-oh.
Damn you.
Gonna
get myself into trouble here.
But yeah, it's, again, can't stop thinking about it. Just beautifully written. Everything we've already said about it. I couldn't put anything else there. It's just,
like above it.
Yeah.
I would also include that one, but I was also trying to not repeat. So this is no surprise, but mine was Born of Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This is the ending of the prequel series of From Blood and Ash, and it really set us up for Cass and Poppy's final book in the main series. And I just thought it did a really, really good job of summarizing everything that had happened in the earlier books, but then also moving them forward.
Like bridging toward
absolutely. It's a great book.
I want to say present day story, but that's not really accurate. Well, that's one of the 3 books that I have for the next superlative, which is favorite installment in a series. And I just went with a 3-way tie because I wasn't going to pick one of these over the others. So I chose for my 3-way tie, The House of Flame and Shadow by Sarah J. Sarah J. Maas, Born of Blood and Ash by JLA, and then Goldfinch by Raven Kennedy. Those were all series finishers, really, even though there's going to be more Blood and Ash books. There's going to be more Crescent City books, allegedly. They're really the series finishers for those couple focuses, at least. They were all 5-star reads for me. They all made me laugh and made me cry, and I just had really great reading experiences with all of them. And I really want to go back and read the whole series for all 3 of these series all over again. You know,
what's
in all our spare time.
Yeah.
I think if I reread House of Flame and Shadow, it would move back up on my list, but it didn't make it into any of my categories.
Oh, really?
Which is really surprising for me because I did like that book a lot. It just, I read some really different stuff this year.
Yeah. Me too.
Well, and that doesn't mean that you didn't like it or didn't love it. Yeah.
We only had so many categories.
I know,
so
right?
What did you put for your favorite installment?
Mine was Destroy the Day by Bridget Kemmerer, which is the final book in the Defy the Night series. She just makes my heart sing. Her books are not steamy.
Yeah.
They're not overly violent, but her characters are so diverse and rich, and you're dying to know what happens in her stories. She's always written YA, but actually has an adult book coming out next year. So I'm really excited about it. Yeah. And I actually just got an arc for a follow-up. There's a offshoot series from her Cursebreaker series, and so I just got an arc for the second book in that series, so I'm really excited about it.
Fun.
Yeah, I don't want to say the wrong title. I'll put it in
yeah. Mindy, what did you put for your favorite
I know
installment?
you all are shocked that I've only brought up like one hockey book, right? So here we go.
That time is over.
So for favorite installment, it was If You Need Me by Helena Hunting. It is the 3rd book in her Toronto Terror series. It's Dallas and Hemi's story. I just recently arc read it. He is the king of grand gestures and such a golden retriever. It's got a curvy MC, relatable bullying storyline, which this was like it happened in the past, but it was very reminiscent. I had a situation like that, so I could very much relate to that. But what I loved especially is because the Trope Trollop also read it, and they said that when I said something about Dallas being a golden retriever, they were like, he is whatever is beyond golden retriever, because he definitely is. Like, he is the most golden retriever of golden retrievers that you can have.
The loyalty of an Akita.
Yes.
Oh, that's fun. I wondered if you were going to have any Helena hunting books.
That's not the only one.
Well, I'd be shocked if it was. Deb, I'm really interested to hear what you picked for this next superlative, because you listen to way more audiobooks than either me or Mindy. So what did you say? Or which ones did you say for favorite audiobook?
Pick two. I'm sorry. Because I do listen to a lot of audio. So my first one was Phantasma by Kaylee Smith. The voice of Blackwell is like a super panty dropper. And we actually follow the narrator on Instagram. And this was just voted one of the top audiobooks of the year.
Oh, cool.
And her videos are super hilarious on Instagram. So then my second one was House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune, which I actually just finished last week. But the cast of characters were so artfully done. It was like listening to a movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was so good. And I don't know if he had the same narrator for Under the Whispering Door, but his characters are very, very quirky and otherworldly. And so the narrator has to be very high energy to keep the story moving along. And I just loved it so much.
Nice. Cool. Mindy, what did you pick for your favorite audiobook?
I picked If You Hate Me by Helena Hunting, which was the first one in her series, because what I liked about that, listening to it, was the spice, the way that the characters narrated that was so good and so hot. Like, I listened to this stuff on my way home from work, and I would walk in the house and be like, Darren, what are you doing?
Pants. Now.
Is Molly home?
Why are your clothes still on?
I mean, it was just, I don't know. There was something about the chemistry between those two narrators that was just very hot.
Yeah. Well, good. I'm glad it could do that for you.
Shout out to Darren.
Yeah, shout out to Darren. Well, my favorite audiobook, I went with The Dangerous Ones by Lauren Blackwood. It was narrated by J. Ben Markson and Angel Payne. It's just Pean. I don't know how to say that last name. I'm so sorry.
I would so call it Peen.
I know, right? This actually is a vampire story. Oh. It's not just, I think it's a vampire story. It really, really is. But this is a vampire story set during the Civil War, where a vampire is working for the Union and helps train a saint, which is basically a vampire hunter, who is also an escaped slave looking to get revenge on the vampire who enslaved her family. Ooh. So it's a very different take on a vampire story. And they just did a really great job, especially doing like Southern accents and stuff. It can get really caricature-y.
Yeah, you never know where it's going to go with that.
Right. And they did a really good job, and it's just a really good story. So that was my favorite. I really wanted to choose Wreck of the Halls, and then was like, oh, that was 2023. Like, whoops.
I had to look at my Goodreads to make sure I was including 2023.
Yeah, me too. What about favorite spicy scene?
So mine's a little different than what you probably think. Mine was The Pairing by Casey McQuiston. So both the people in this book are bisexual. So I learned some really interesting new things about how they simulate same-sex intercourse, even though they're both male and female.
Oh,
and it was kind of hot. I mean, there were things I had never read before that I was like, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
And she is non-binary and bisexual, and then he, goes by he. But they just have a really beautiful relationship. And when they finally do hook up, it's like fireworks. So it's a special book.
I actually have that book on my physical TBR, and I can't wait to read it.
Yeah, it's really different.
Started tomorrow.
It's really different from...
I'm reading 3 books right now.
It's really different from Casey McQuiston's other books, but I really, really enjoyed it a lot.
That's the same person that wrote Red, White, and Royal Blue.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and The Last Stop. Is that what the other one's called?
I can't remember.
Yeah, they have one before Red, White, and Royal Blue, too.
Mindy, what did you pick for your favorite spicy scene?
I'm going to go with the public vibrator action behind the cello in Leather and Lark.
Oh, in Leather and Lark.
Yeah, I've just never read anything like that before.
Yeah.
You know, it was very different. It was something...
Spice at a distance.
Well, yeah, and just not something that you see depicted very, very often. So
yeah, that's true.
It was unique.
Yeah. Well, I actually have two, but for two very different reasons. One is Priest. Well, actually, just kidding.
Damn.
I have three. I forgot I have three. I picked two for like actual spice. So Priest by Sierra Simone and then Praise by Sarah Kate. Both of those are just like spicing.
I almost put Sarah Kate.
The spice is spicing, and that was great. But I also wanted to put Business or Pleasure by Rachel Lynn Solomon, which this spice scene at the beginning of the book made me laugh so hard because the whole like premise of this book is that these two main characters have a one night stand where the guy is like really bad in bed.
Oh, I
and
remember this one.
They end up working together and she tells him like, hey, you were bad in bed. And he's like, oh dear God, please help me. And the initial sex scene is so funny and it's so awkward and you are cringing and like hiding behind your hands like, oh my gosh, he did not just do that. It made me laugh so hard, and I just thought that she did a really good job writing what could have been like a horrible scene.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you still really like these characters. It makes you laugh. You're not like, okay, well, I'm done with this book because he sucks in bed, right? Like it was really well done and I really enjoyed it a lot. Which again, like you were saying, you don't see that very often,
really
right?
don't.
Like you don't see somebody who doesn't have a great time.
It's attractive to see a man though that's like willing to learn.
Yes, he's so mortified and is like, oh my gosh, do you think every woman I've ever slept with thinks this? And she's like, yeah. It's so great. But yeah, everybody should read Business or Pleasure by Rachel Lynn Solomon. Who did you guys pick for your favorite book couple? This was also really hard for me.
This was hard for me. I have two, actually.
Go ahead.
Who'd you pick, Min?
So one, I picked Dean and Allie from The Score.
Oh yeah, I love
because again, they're just so fun.
They're Dean and Allie.
They're Dean. I don't even know how. Like you just have to read it to get it. They're just the way that it all comes together, and they're just chef's kiss. And then of course Rowan and Sloane from Butcher and Blackbird, because that was my first read of the year.
It was mine too, yeah.
And of course I fell in love with it.
Yeah, so they're really, really good. I ended up picking Ash and Sarah from Flesh and Fire series by Jennifer L. Armentrout, and also a tie with Arin and Slade from the Plated Prisoner series. And I love having a complete series for both of these couples that I really love. Like individually as characters, they are really great characters. And as couples, they're really great. There's still great character development, both as a couple and as individuals, which I really appreciate. That's not just the couple is not the only identity that they have. Right. And I like having a complete series where you see like from start to finish the whole character arc. But honorable mention to Wells and Josephine from Fangirl Down. I just really love that book and I love them a lot.
You just like the rimming.
Oh yeah. How'd you know? I dream about it every day. Who was your favorite couple, Deb?
Mine was Josh and Allie in Lights Out by Nevessa Allen, which I just convinced Book Club to read for January. I'm really excited. I've said this before, but it's a mostly consensual stalker romance with a really, really sweet cinnamon roll guy. And he's like super hot. He's all tatted up and yummy. But she ends up being he ends up being the normal one, right?
Yeah.
Who just likes to be online. And then she's like a lot crazier than this. I love it.
What about your favorite reread?
I bet you know mine. I reread it every year.
I don't know.
It's King of Battle and Blood.
Oh.
It's really a comfort read for me, and just I listen to it honestly, and it's just something about the narrator in that first book, the way that they do Adrian's voice is really amazing.
Yeah, panty dropper.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
How about you, Whit?
I know that people are going to think I'm going to say The Bonds That Tie, but actually, I'm throwing a curveball here.
Uh-oh.
My favorite reread this year was actually Throne of Glass.
Oh.
Which is like...
You reread that?
I did, yeah.
Wow.
And my sister's reading it right now, which makes me want to read it again.
I've really been wanting to. I just can't take the time.
It's a huge commitment, yeah. I love that series so much. It's so layered. It's so well done. Every book gets better as you read on in the series. And by the time you get to the end of the last book, it's just like this beautiful picture of all these different characters and this journey that all of them have gone through, and not just the main characters. And I love it even more after reading Crescent City and seeing some of those connections. It's just great. It's like the perfect series.
I think I said it this time last year I was going to do a reread.
Yeah. I mean, they're huge books, and there's like 10 of them. Right. So it's hard to commit to that.
Yeah. You know, my daughter has still never read Kingdom of Ash. I'm like, you are missing out on the best book
that's
in the
like
series.
Whew.
She's like, I'm really intimidated by its size.
Yeah, I get that.
That's what she said. Not my daughter.
Read it on Kindle, because then you can't.
Well, that's true. And turn off the percentage.
Yeah,
that it's
you
are 0.5% through the book.
Gosh, you guys. So after I talked about The Witching Hour several episodes, I had requested it at the library, and there was a hold because that show's out right now.
Right, yeah.
Do you want to know how many hours in audiobook that book is?
Is it like 18?
50.
Oh my gosh.
I was going to say 24, but yeah.
50 hours?
50. I don't think it's more than 1,000 pages. It's like Kingdom of Ash size, but I don't understand why
That's
it's
crazy.
50 hours.
Maybe they talk
Maybe they
really slow. Yeah.
Well, I sped it up, and it did not really change how long it was going to take. So
That's crazy. Oh my gosh.
I may not be finishing that.
Mindy, did you have a favorite reread? Because I know you don't really.
I don't reread things normally, but so this year I have read or listened to Butcher and Blackbird 3 times.
Oh yeah.
So one for the podcast, one because I read it, and then I wanted to listen to it also. So I would call that my favorite reread, because other than Leather and Lark, I think it's the only thing I've reread this year. I think.
Yeah.
So, but I probably would have picked it anyways, just because I love that book so much.
It is it's a good book. Well, what about authors that you have added to your instant buy list? I have like 4.
I have 2. Go ahead, Whitney, since you have 4.
Well, I've already mentioned 3 out of the 4 of these. Ellery Douglas, Ray Riley, Larissa C. Moyer, and then Stella Stevenson, who I just like randomly picked up a couple of her books at the Books of Bourbon Spooky Soiree, and I've really love them. So yeah, those 4 authors, they're all like, everybody's happy at the end of the story. Right? Like everybody finds what they're looking for, and everybody's happy, and that's what I want. So those are my instant buy authors. What about you guys?
Mine's Abby Jimenez. I had never read anything by her before, and I really enjoyed Just for the Summer. And I immediately went to Book of the Month, because I got it in my Book of the Month box, and I immediately went to their app and put the other 2 that they have that they had already had, and then put them in my like add-on box and got them the next month, because I just really loved her voice. I loved the kind of sentiment it all had, and how it was easy to read, but not in like a this is too easy to read kind of way, if that makes sense. It was palatable. I just really, really enjoyed her and enjoyed that book. So I haven't read the other 2 books that I ordered yet.
But you have them.
But I have them, and I did immediately buy them. So...
Oh, that's funny. What about you, Deb?
For me, the author that wrote Don't Let the Forest In, C.G. Drews, they have 3 more books coming out in 25 and 26.
That excites
me.
So
I'm very, very excited about that. Those will be instant buys for me. And then Danielle Jensen, who writes the Bridge Kingdom series, her characters are just multi-layered, and her fantasy world building is perfect. And one thing I really like is things don't get wrapped up super quickly. So there's a pretty big lie that comes out in the first book, and it's not like this person's not forgiven until the end of like the second in the beginning of the third book.
Wow. Yeah.
So it's not like, oh, you said you're sorry, because it's a
and we're good
huge
now.
betrayal.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, she did all these great things, and so we're going to like let her back in our fold. They don't do that. And I actually really love that, because it feels much more realistic.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, she's a wonderful author.
How lucky are we that we have so many really great authors that we can actually like talk to and read their books and escape reality.
I do feel very, very fortunate that we get to do the things we do.
I know, right? Well, let's talk about most underrated or most slept on book.
I have 3.
Well, tell us all.
Okay. The first one is Fear the Flames by Olivia Rose Darling, and she actually just announced a sequel. It'll come out in July.
Cool.
The second one is Bound to the Shadow Prince by Ruby Dixon, and everyone knows this author from Ice Planet Barbarians, but no one talked about this book when it came out this year, and I gave it 5 stars. I thought it was a really interesting take on fantasy. And then my third one is Now Conjurers by Freddie Cloche. This is a really unique take on making a deal with the devil, and I'd highly recommend it if you like horror. It's like a mix of Stranger Things and Supernatural.
Yeah.
I really, really liked it.
I remember you talking about that one.
Yeah. But again, I've not heard anyone else
talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mindy, what did you pick for your most underrated slept-on book?
I picked a book called Weekends with You by Alexandra Page. This is a debut arc that I read, and I just didn't... I mean, I saw it a couple of places when she did her release, but I really, really enjoyed it. It had one-day vibes to it.
Yeah,
it was like the same couple at different time periods, and how sort of they moved through their relationship, and how you weren't sure how it was going to work out, and how it does work out in the end. It was a very sweet, sentimental read. It was, I don't know, there was just something about it that was just very touching. And I liked the way that things didn't necessarily wrap up in like a nice, sweet bow. I mean, it was a HEA, but it was a dirty HEA. Like, it was like not all pretty wrapped in a bow.
Like dirty, spicy, or like messed up.
Like not even either of those, just sort of like not perfect.
Right.
It wasn't a perfect HEA.
They really clawed their way to the happy ending.
Yes.
That's what she said.
That sounds like it would hurt.
I know. So my most underrated or slept on book is the one that I just talked about, Business or Pleasure by Rachel Lynn Solomon. This was a blind date with a book that I got from a novel romance.
Oh yeah.
I haven't seen like anybody talking about this book on social media. It's so good. It's so funny. And it needs more. It needs more attention. Yeah, it needs more attention. So in that same vein, what about your most underrated or most slept on author? Who'd you pick, Deb?
The author I chose actually has a cult following. Her name's Leah Stone, but her book Lies That Bleed was what I really wanted Fourth Wing to be. Fourth Wing for me had a lot of dialogue and a lot of back and forth, and I'm not knocking it in any way. Fourth Wing is a really great book. I just like the pacing of Leia's books a little bit better, and it reminded me of Fourth Wing meets Hunger Games. And so the next book comes out actually like really soon, so I'm excited. I ended it and was like chomping at the bit for the next book.
What about you, Mindy?
For me, it's Rebecca Rennick. She's the one that writes the Gummy Bear Orgy series that I read. She is just hilarious, and her books are so cool and unique, and they're fun, and the printing, like I got the colored printing, which is just kind of cool. And she doesn't do a lot of appearances and signings and stuff, and so I think a lot of people just don't really know about her, but her books are so fun. Everything. I mean, she also has and I have not read it, but she does have a fantasy book out that just came out. So I don't know. I think it's because she's sort of not. She doesn't put herself out there a whole lot. I feel like she's maybe like a little shy, but I highly recommend picking up her books. They're super fun. They're super spicy.
Yeah.
And just really cute characters.
What more could you ask for, right? Well, I have 2 most slept on authors, and both of these are authors that have really dedicated, like very dedicated. I said that twice, didn't I? I want to say very intense, and I feel like that has a negative connotation.
Passionate.
And that's passionate. Thank you. They have very passionate fans, so they have people out there that know how amazing they are. But I would love to see both of these authors just like explode on social media and really go there. And one is Stella Stevenson and the other is Elle Mitchell, and they both write very different types of books. Stella Stevenson is much more like traditional rom-com, just cutesy love stories, happy, everybody's happy and light, and it's great spice. Elle writes more darker stories. You know, her most recent books are a duology of like rock star, cult leader, why choose, blood drinking, like super dark, right? But she writes Elle is so good at writing super flawed characters that you still really, really love and want to root for, even though they're like real messed up, right? Both of them have really great spice, and they're both really great people. Like I've gotten to talk to both of them in person, especially Elle. I've gotten to talk with her in person a lot more. And I love them. They're great people and they're great writers, and I want everybody to read their books because they're great.
I know. I don't know anything about Stella, but Elle is top notch.
Yeah.
She's great.
Yeah. They both deserve like all the success. Go read their books, guys. All right. Penultimate superlative. Look at that SAT word. Favorite tearjerker of 2024. What do you guys pick for this one?
Go ahead, Mindy.
No, I was going to say, does it count if it made me cry because I was so mad that I read it?
No, asshole.
Like Manacled or The Idea of You.
Both of those are great books. So yeah, sure.
Both of those were mine, so fuck off.
Were those your two tearjerkers? Oh my God.
Yep. They are the books that made me sob this year.
Oh, those were good. I loved both of those.
Fuck you, Mindy.
Look, to each their own.
Did you have any books that like made you cry?
Do you have any books that were good?
No, I have, a heart of stone. No, I'm just
dead inside.
I actually picked Together We Rot by Skyla Arndt because that ending really did get me. I honestly don't typically cry at books. I probably have a heart of stone. I don't know. But spoiler alert, it's not really an HEA, this book. And it was...
Thank you for telling me.
Yeah. But this is not a Whitney book.
Yeah, it really isn't. It really isn't. But I just, that one really made me cry at the end there. I was not expecting.
I was very choked up at the end of that too.
Yeah. Well, this will not be a shocker. My tearjerker was The Pieces We Try to Forget.
The one with the one with
tissue
the
stuck to my face. Yep. Mm-hmm. And I'll do it again the next time I read it. And then to finish us out, not on tearjerkers, but what was the most laugh out loud book of 2024 for you guys?
Go, Deb.
It was one I've already talked about it, and like I said, I didn't want to repeat, but again, it was House in the Cerulean Sea. I talked about the narration, but the orphans in this book are all magical creatures, and one of them just happens to be the son of Lucifer. He runs around all the time trying to scare new people who come to the orphanage by like promising hellfire and his reign over the earth. The only problem is that he's 6. And he wants to actually be good. He's trying to like separate himself and like be a good person, but he's like, I will rain hellfire on you. And he loves to fuck with people. Like I laughed so many times. And then there is like this octopus humanoid character that dreams of being a bellhop and has the voice of like a teenage boy going through puberty. And so no joke, every chapter of this book I laughed out loud.
Yeah.
And I think
That's
it
great.
was the narration for me that really solidified it. It was because the voices are just perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That has been on my TBR, that and Under the Whispering Door by that same author.
I would say read Under the Whispering Door first. Under the Whispering Door made me cry.
Yeah.
And I gave it 5 stars. House in the Cerulean Sea, I gave 4 stars. And I think I probably would have given it 5 if I hadn't read Under the Whispering Door first.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It just didn't meet
But they're both very whimsical. And I would listen to both of them.
That's what I was going to say. I have the physical copy of Under the Whispering Door, but now I kind of want to listen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really
But I never would have thought that book would be a laugh out loud.
Yeah, it's the characters. It's got some pretty heavy material in it, but it's hilarious.
But it's still fun along the way.
Yeah. Under the Whispering Door is not fun. You will not be laughing during that book, but it's an amazing book.
Mindy, what was your favorite laugh out loud book?
I picked, this is one that I just recently finished. It's called The Remains of Christmas by Megan Montgomery. This was a recommendation from the Trope Trollop. Shout out to the Trope Trollop. This woman knows how to write a really comedic, over-the-top mishap scene, like multiples in one book, without it sounding too terribly unbelievable. So, there's this one, so they're taking this skull that got dug up, that's sort of like the missing link for this big discovery, right? That you don't really find out till the end. But it's in a little bit of an age gap. He's like a buttoned up professor, and she's sort of like the wild child. But you find out that he's really dirty in bed.
Ooh.
But they have all these weird, like, she keeps saying, let's stop and go to this Christmas festival, and they end up like meeting this couple, and then I don't remember if she eats, she has an allergic reaction to something, and she like basically passes out in the car. He has to take her to the ER, and it's like she's
just like hijinks the whole time.
In the 1 millionth person that has this really bad reaction to whatever it is. It's just funny.
Yeah.
The whole way through I was laughing. So I'm really excited to read some more of her books. She has some other ones too. So
I like books that make me laugh. Ultimately, I ended up going with Fangirl Down by Tessa Bailey because there are just several things in that book that just make me laugh. And I love that book so much. But I wanted to give a special shout out to 2 nonfiction comedy books that I did really enjoy a lot, and they are funny. So I'll Join Your Cult by Maria Bamford, her memoir. It's kind of like you were saying, Deb, like it's heavy, but it's also really, really funny because she's really, really funny. And then The Art of Small Talk by Casey Wilson and Jessica St. Clair, the audiobook. It is really funny. Yeah. They are both very funny, and the book is very funny. So, but ultimately I went with Tessa Bailey. Well, thank you guys so much. Thank you, Deb. Thank you, Mindy. Thank you, Whitney, for sharing your superlatives.
Did you just thank yourself?
Thank you, listeners. Of course, nerds, share with us your superlatives, your favorite breeds of 2024. We would love to hear, especially if they're new to us books. We can add them to our list or TBRs.
If you read books our listeners recommend before what I recommended, I will stab you.
I'll be dead to you. We hope you enjoyed this last episode of 2024, and we'll see you in just a few weeks for some new episodes. Bye.
Bye.